Welcome to Brad's Bark. Today's special guest is Kari Lesick, but she doesn't have a normal title. It's not dog trainer, not dog groomer, not horse trainer, nothing of that sort. Kari Lesick is a very dynamic individual who brings a lot of different talents to the table when it comes to dealing with horses, pigs, cows, orangutans, dogs, cats, and obviously the human body. Let's talk about your history, your background. Where have you come from? What have you done? How have your credentials become what they are today?
About 20 years ago, I got into the dog world and had one of the first dog walking and dog sitting businesses in Calgary. And so through that, it was a lot of time with the dogs and with pack, learning from the dogs a pack mentality. And it was a very important time for myself personally to come into my own power and my own strength, because the dogs taught me how to have to come in and be very firm in my own constitution to be able to be a good leader for them.
Okay.
I got into the dog training world after that and spent a lot of years in the dog training world and looking at some behavioral things, and I was noticing that there was a piece that was missing. So about 7 years ago, I got into the BodyTalk world and into more of the healing modalities and the complementary modalities to work. They work very nicely alongside of our vet medicine. So it's not that one's better than the other, but I learned that when I was working in the vet clinic that oftentimes there would be interesting information that I could pick up from the dog or the owners or someone else in the family that the veterinarian didn't necessarily have time to look into or delve into at that moment. And you could really see where some of the energy and some of the emotion of what was going on in the family was being housed within the pet's body and the symptomology that the pet had.
So you mentioned veterinarians. Do you find that there is a large partnership with veterinarians? Do you find a large partnership with other trainers, whether it be in the equine world, canine? How does that work? Like where do you fit into the pathway of finding a solution to the dog's illness or sadness or anxiety?
Yeah. So 7 years ago, there wasn't as many people that were open to looking at the energy or the emotional aspects. I'm finding more and more now that there's a lot of veterinarians worldwide that understand the importance of bringing in the complementary modalities to work alongside of them. It is really for dog trainers or people that are working in animal sanctuaries. It's a great way to understand who the animal is and where they've come from and past traumas that they may have experienced. And it gives a great opportunity to work through some of those past traumas so that their behaviors can start to shift and change.
Interesting, interesting. This isn't witchcraft or some weird voodoo thing that you're doing with animals, is it? I'm not trying to take away from the importance of what you do, but to many people, do you sit at home with potions and stir a big wooden spoon over, in a pot? Like, how do you find out what's going on with the people and or animal?
It's a great question, because I get asked that question a lot. No, it's not voodoo. As a matter of fact, I facilitate a few classes, and one of the classes that I facilitate is a linking awareness class, which is a communication class. And so one of the brilliant things about that class is we take every sense and separate it and work with it individually so that we can enhance how we bring information in. So really anybody can do this. Anybody can have this kind of connection. It just takes practice. It's like going to the gym and working out in the gym. We go to the gym to work out the senses and the ability for our innate wisdom or for our gut to bring in the information.
So you've had a very interesting journey to collect this information, to bring it back to Canada. And the reason I say to bring it back to Canada, you've traveled overseas, you've traveled to other continents. So tell the viewers what your journey has been like.
The greatest moment that I can tell you is being in Borneo and having a little orangutan and being able to hold that and feel its heartbeat next to mine. It's been incredible adventures into Indonesia to work with the elephants in the reserves in the sanctuary, into Borneo to work in the jungle with the orangutan. You know, there's a lot of trauma. The palm oil plantation are taking out a lot of the jungles and being replanted, and so there's not as much space in place for these orangutans to be living. So we went in on different projects to work alongside with veterinary medicine, to work on some of the trauma and to work on getting some change from these animals so that they'll start eating again.
So when you're speaking trauma, are you talking relocation, loss of habitat? Is this what you're seeing in these other countries?
Just, you know, very much like here too. We're seeing it in our own backyard, but predominantly there it's loss of habitat. It's, you know, mothers or the family pack within the orangutans being killed for the palm oil plantations or going into villages, and so then a lot of the little orangutan are left to, you know, to their own accord and their own means of survival. And so they're coming into the care centers and being rehabilitated so that they can be put back out into the jungle.
What about the orca whales that are in captivity in different parts of North America, or even dolphins? Would there be a calling for your service to help these animals or these mammals in these dire situations?
It's a fantastic question, and you know, I could talk a lot about the answer to this because part of it comes back to animal consciousness and animals' intelligence and choice, and how much choice they have to be there or not. Sometimes I find it fascinating when we have to go into a sanctuary setting or into a zoo setting to work with the animals that are caged, but I watch the animals coming up to the glass or the cage working on the humans, and so which one are really trapped and really in the cage. But yes, to come in from a distance and to come in with some different energy or different frequency to support what the orcas or what the dolphins are going through in captivity. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to supplement what they're going through and to get some really great shifts in their health.
So you sound as though you are a leader in this knowledge and the teachings.
It's the new way. It's the way that part of how we respect the animals and work with the animal kingdom is starting to shift in paradigm.
How do you talk to somebody and coach them through that first initial step? Because it is different, yes. Let's face it, it's new, it's fresh, obviously needed, yes. to you know, the furthest extent. I mean, every dog goes through trauma, whether it's through a surgery or something has happened in a household, through a divorce, a newborn. How does someone approach you for that first initial consultation?
So there's different ways that people can get a hold of me. Most of the time what I like to do is to talk to somebody over the phone, to just get some information, to hear the story about what they're going through, what they're noticing with the animals in the house, with their animal companions. And then I'm going to ask some questions as to what's going on in your world, what's changed for you in, you know, the last 6-8 months, depending on how long you've noticed things change with your animal, and just find out what's going on from your relationship perspective or work and some of the stress and things that you might be going through yourself.
Okay, and what is an outcome? Obviously we're looking for a positive outcome, but what are the outcomes at the end of the day for this relationship between animal and person?
You know, oftentimes what I've noticed is that our animals can only communicate with us in certain ways. And so some of that is through their behaviors, and also sometimes for us to get our own messages or understand where we're at and some things that need to change in our own worlds, that also might show up in the form of diseases or some health pathologies. So I think one of the amazing outcomes is is that our animal companions they become a great way for us to understand where we're at and the things that we can work through. And oftentimes, if we let go of things that we're holding on to tightly, or some of those programs and belief systems that we are, and we start to open up to be more expansive and change who we are, then we'll start to notice that the behaviors or those pathologies are also starting to change.
I'm a firm believer, because I've seen the reality of a human having the expectation for a dog to understand my language, let's say English, German, French. Is it fair for the human race to expect animals of any type out there to understand our language first, or should we flip it and pay attention to what the animal is actually saying?
I think that we oftentimes expect that our animals can understand the human language, and it's an unfair thing to do. I think that we have to understand and take the time to understand who they are and their behaviors and their actions, and understand what they're trying to tell us. We always default and we use our resource and our memories to understand things. So we'll look at the dog world or a dog behavior, and because you felt this way or felt a certain way or went through something, we'll automatically default and say that that's what they're going through. And sometimes that can be so far from the truth. It can be very, very far off base.
What is your takeaway at the end of a busy day? How do you feel? Is it taxing on you emotionally? Because you're tapping into these beautiful souls as well as a human soul. So is there a negative or is there a positive? How does your day end?
You know what? I feel so lucky because this is the best job in the world. I get to spend my days and my time out in nature and with animals, and my world is about connecting with the animals, helping animals connect with their human companions. And so how does it really get any better than that? It's getting into the heart and soul of people and really into connection.
Well, thank you very, very much for joining me on Brad Spark. Kari, thank you for joining
Thank you.
the show, as well as you, Manu. You're just an outstanding co-host. Yes, you are. Okay, thank you. So that's a wrap.
She's the real teacher.